Hey everyone, welcome back to your Money Life podcast, episode 338 of the podcast, which we're going to do a little differently since I am on vacation. We are pre-recording something that's actually a really important topic that I'm getting a lot of questions on. So we do want to touch on it today. So one of the biggest questions we get is, should I pay off debt versus investing or build an emergency fund first? And for people, the honest answer is it may not be one or the other. You don't have to do one or the other. Sometimes you can do all three at the same time, but maybe not at the same speed, right? So the goal here is for us to create a usable framework, a usable strategy for when someone is dealing with that dilemma and how to approach it. So here's how I think about it. If you think about, what happens each month, you first want to start with cash flow, meaning, what is left after you pay off, or maybe you put a little in savings or investing, you pay something off or you pay your bills. We need to know the monthly surplus after that, after bills, minimum debt payments, groceries, rent, savings, and life. What is actually left? So, an example: someone has $800 left after expenses. They don't need to randomly guess where that goes. They can split it in a way that makes sense. So maybe you're doing $400 towards debt or $250 towards emergency savings, or even just $150 towards investing in your individual account, Roth IRA, traditional IRA. It doesn't have to have some sort of perfect golden rule to it. It just needs to make sense for you to be inching towards the goals that you are actually looking to achieve. So again, you can always do these things simultaneously. And if you want to speed up a certain thing, you can increase the amount that goes over to that section. Like say it's investing, you can increase the amount that goes towards the investing, but of course it means you would lower the amount that goes somewhere else, right? So think about it that way. You are able to split things up, and you could still get to the goal. You just may have to push out the timeline for everything in that scenario. So another thing is, you always want to make your minimum debt payments first. That's the thing that we must do. So before any extra investing or extra savings, I say extra, meaning there's a baseline of those things too, to avoid late fees, penalties, credit score damage, or interest stacking up in a way that's not conducive for your future goals. You probably want to just pay the minimum first. Most people we see do that. There's not, a lot of times where we see that the minimum isn't being paid first. So again, the minimum payments or a baseline, because you don't want to be, let's say saving for an emergency fund while you're missing required payments that could hurt your credit score or do something else for you, and create bigger issues. So the separate minimum payment and separate minimum payments from like your actual extra debt payments. So minimum payments, of course, are required. Next, of course, we want to prioritize the higher interest debt. Everyone knows this isn't rocket science, but the high interest debt is the debt that you usually see on credit cards. So it's 20 plus interest rate versus student loans, which will be a lot lower, or mortgage, which will be a lot lower. So if your credit card is charging you 24%, that debt is obviously something that's a higher rate. That debt is equipped with a higher rate. So every month, if you're attacking that first versus other debt that shouldn't really be lumped into the same as consumer debt, you are then able to attack that first. So high interest debt, you want to attack aggressively because it can erase your progress elsewhere if you're adding that incremental interest because of the interest rate being so high, right? So you can be serious about, debt payoff without putting your entire life on pause. So that's another thing. You can be serious about it, but you also don't have to put your entire life on pause. These tools are what you need to do, and most people can do them if you're disciplined enough to be able to make sure that your life is working seamlessly, even with, the goals that you have at hand. And then you want to at least build a starter emergency fund. A starter emergency fund is going to be helpful to actually make sure that you don't go in debt in the first place. So when you have that starter emergency fund, for any unexpected expenses that you may in the past have put on your credit card, you'll be able to put them on, use the emergency fund. You can even still put them on the card, but then pay it off with the emergency fund. It's the key. It's a really a key because, oftentimes people pay down debt, and then in that they're paying you. Let's say you're rolling paying down your debt, you're using attacking the high interest, you're getting things going, making more than minimum payments, but then something is unexpected happens. And then you have to put that on the card versus having that emergency fund built up so that you can just use the cash there. Because if you don't have a cash cushion, your credit card, in a sense, becomes your emergency fund. And that's really how people get stuck in that debt cycle. There's always going to be something that comes up, whether it's every couple months, every couple weeks. So maybe start with at least $1,000 in an emergency fund to build for those essential expenses, and then build it up over time to maybe 2, 3 months expenses, right? For any creatives, business owners or women that are working in inconsistent income situations, you may need a larger cushion, but again, it's based on how things are flowing for you. Maybe you're 1099 with a big contract, and you're able to get by with less in your emergency fund, but you don't need it to be something that you pile out of cash in. It's just to give you a little bit of cushion. And lastly, don't ignore investing completely, right? The foundation of these things that we're speaking of, but especially for younger audiences, investing is going to be super helpful for you, even if it's minimal to start. If your job offers a 401k match, take that. We don't like to see people leave free money on the table. But even small investing in a Roth IRA, individual account, for the self-employed people, traditional IRAs can be good as well, as long as, someone that works W-2. So the debt payoff can help clean out the past, but investing is really there for the future. We're doing those things for the future, for our savings, for our cushions, for things that we're going to need in the future. Next thing you want to do is like probably use a percentage split, because we're talking about numbers that could be incremental, that could be variable. It's best to try to use a percentage split and increase this percentage to things that you want to do faster. But a simple framework: if debt is high interest, 70%. If you have, again, going back to the example of what someone has at the end of the month, 70% is going to be to debt payoff, the other 20% to the emergency fund, and the other 10% to investing. If emergency fund is too low, then you can do 40, 40, 20. If debt is manageable, you could do 30, 30, 40. But you want to, again, make sure that you have a clear percentage based guideline for doing this, because it's going to make your life so much easier for this. So, and lastly, you can automate this stuff if it makes sense for you. Automation is always good if it makes sense. Again, if it's easy, again, with variable income, that might be harder to do. Here's the thing not to do. We've given you a lot of tips, 7, 8 tips on what to do. Not to do is say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna just avoid this. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just going to only do XYZ and not know and not work on all these things. You want to work on all the things congruently at the same time. So those are things you want to focus on. So again, if you're someone out there that's working through this or needs help or knows someone that needs help, make sure they reach out to us here at New Street. We're helping almost 500 people right now when it comes to financial planning, retirement, investment management, and all things the like. So make sure you reach out, and stay tuned for another episode next week. We appreciate you.